mobile game. He tried to throw a little pity party over trolls annoying him about his absolute lack of concern with his money, but this time, pity was something very difficult to have. Phil was having some serious financial and professional trouble since the very beginning of the decade. There was no justification at any period in time for him to have spent that much on a mobile game. That is, unless some of his detractors, like Tevin, were right all along, and Phil's claims of being poor were to some degree an act. And he wasn't as worried about his money as he appeared on streams. In perhaps one of the best and funniest trolling campaigns done on Twitch for the entirety of his career, trolls began to call out Phil on his mobile gaming addiction.
Hey, Phil Burnell, it's your Olympic hero Kurt Angle. The detractors have your number, buddy. I've seen the bank leaks. Jasper, show me your phone. We all know the WWE Champion's addiction is getting worse. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. And Cactus does more than Burger King. And by the way, I'm watching you.
On top of a few other wrestling-related people and Ricky Berwick, we even get to see a familiar face chime in and give his very valuable 2 cents.
You're filing for bankruptcy, but the only reason you're filing for bankruptcy is because you dumped $40,000
or needlessly expensive hobbies. And that's not even mentioning the fact that Phil is approaching his 40s right now, and eventually he'll simply be 2 old thousands by himself. Appearing suddenly in August 2017, Tut wasn't an old-time fan of DSPs, meaning he wasn't one of these stragglers from pre-lolcow DSP era who felt some parasocial affection for the man. So it's really hard to deduce why he decided out of nowhere to dump as much money as he did into Phil's black hole of debt. Being as much of a pay pig as Tut was had his benefits, so he could get away with pretty much anything, for being toxic in chat and insulting other viewers, all the way to trying to control Phil's streams altogether. While the pay pig privilege lasted for a good few months, eventually it did get to the point where the mods decided Tut had to go. Once he was banned, he became furious and demanded that Phil refund all the donations he'd ever made. This attempt at getting a refund was neglected by Phil, and Tut proceeded to file a fraud claim on PayPal to get his money back. The thing is, PayPal is so broken that this attempt actually posed a serious threat to Phil's entire operation. According to Phil, this was Tut's plan all along, and he was a secret detractor, so much so that he supposedly made appearances to DSP Hater podcast after the chargeback, claiming that he got all of his money back and screwed Phil over. Phil's story, however, is that he successfully kept all the money and Tut's PayPal shenanigans floundered, but there's no way to know who's telling the truth in this situation. But while Tut's case is a clearer-cut situation, there's another case where Phil took out some of his anger at one of his mods, despite the latter not really deserving it. Swaggins, another one of DSP's whale followers, gave a tip to Phil on how to beat one of the bosses in the Resident Evil 2 remix, only for Phil to misconstrue it, blame him, and lash out. As a result of this outburst, Swaggins proceeded to liberally unban a detractor despite Phil. In a stream of Sekiro that took place soon after, Swaggins found himself extremely annoyed when Phil relapsed back to his old ways of complaining about a game when it wasn't easy enough for him to play it successfully. But DSP, having none of it, said, "I'm at a time in my life where I don't have time to deal with it. Swaggins is just mad that he told me to do something wrong during Resident Evil 2 and got blown up for it. Then that I plain don't like the combat in Sekiro, and he's so hurt by that. So he was a fair weather friend who wanted to mod when I agree with him, but as soon as there's a major disagreement, don't talk about it to me at all, but instead freak out and leave. That is kitty stuff, and I'm far beyond it, to the point where I'm not having a second John Rambo situation. So he can just get out and stay out. That is literally what happened with Rambo all over again. Note it and proceed to shit all over it. Sekiro is an example of that. My time is valued elsewhere. Twitch should be a place to escape problems, not listen to with Atanani based on his Twitch suspension, which of course isn't true. They think I demodded and banned him from the channel, lol. So whoever this is apparently impersonating him to get me to think it's him and to get rid of him. Soon it dawned on Phil that he was being fooled, and Mouse wasn't. Mouse's expose were the accusations during another stream. Later that year, over the course of a few weeks in September, hackers were able to socially engineer Bank of America to give them access to Phil's bank statements by using public info of his that was available. In the findings were intriguing to say the least. Over the course of the better part of 2 years, Phil spent approximately $190,485. Of that nearly $200,000, $3,000 went to alcohol, $6,000 was spent on restaurants and takeout, $11,000 on groceries, $26,000 on taxes, $33,000 on mortgage payments, and last but not least, $45,000 on microtransactions, not only including WWE champions, but PayPal and iTunes. It appears that the detractors, and most prominently Tevin, were right all along, and Phil aggressively played up his financial tightness to get more donations, while he spent it on stupid garbage constantly. When Phil did address it, he didn't actually. He just claimed he suffered identity theft, which is actually true, and purposefully left the rest of the details as vague as he could, as to not raise attention to the glaring fact that perhaps the most damning piece of information on him ever was now public. Now comes the end of 2021, and Phil decides to make some changes to his content. First and foremost, the biggest change would be dropping the King of Hate moniker that had defined his career, appearing on merchandise, his own forums, and even his vlogging channel that he'd also retired on the 3rd of January in a video titled Good Self on Begging. Phil took the opportunity to do a Boogie 2988 and performatively embrace the criticism to look better. Unfortunately, Phil then suffered another series of